Chapter 7. In the Schoolyard. It was almost 2 hours later now, and the sun was somewhat lower in the sky. Henry looked cautiously out of the garage, saw no one, and started on his way. He walked for a long time, trying to stay on side streets and being careful to avoid attention. It was not easy. People kept staring at him. Henry ignored him and kept on walking. In the middle of the street down which he was walking stood a school. Henry could see lots of boys playing in the schoolyard. He decided to walk through the yard to get to the next street. As he started through, all the boys stopped playing basketball and pitching in and roller skate hockey to look at him. It was as if all the noise and action had become frozen, like a movie or a TV show that stopped suddenly. Henry kept going. As he was about halfway through, just about in the middle of the yard, the kids seemed to come to life again. In less time than it takes to tell about it, he was surrounded. Henry looked around him. All the boys stayed back, and they had formed a tight circle around him. Henry didn't like it. One of the tallest boys, who looked a good deal older than Henry, spoke up. "Boy, you are ugly," he said. "Yeah," said another boy in the crowd. "Really ugly." "Ugly," echoed another boy. "I'd better be polite," Henry thought. "Excuse me," he said in a quiet voice. "Could I get through, please?" The boys didn't move. The big boy, who seemed to be a leader, spoke again. "I've seen pimples before, but those were ridiculous." "They're not pimples," another boy said. "They're warts." "Yeah, warts," said another. "They gotta be warts." Now all the boys were speaking up. "Ugliest warts in the whole world." "In the whole world? Man, they are the ugliest whole warts in the universe. I thought I've seen ugly kids before, but this one is out of sight. Horrible, disgusting, revolting, and he smells too." A fat boy with glasses said. "Youch, like a stupid candy factory. Nauseating." The more the boys called him names, the worse Henry felt. He opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. The big boy in the crowd held up his hands to silence the others. "Quiet down, you guys," he said. "I want to talk to Mr. Ugly here." In a few moments, the crowd was silent. "Now then," the one big boy said, "you, Mr. Ugly, what's your name, kid?" Before Henry answered, he thought carefully. He was ashamed of himself and the way he looked, but he was even more ashamed of the gang around him. How dare they act so mean? He hadn't harmed them, and now when he could certainly use a friend, they had clearly marked him as an enemy. Henry got angry, but he kept his anger firmly under control. My name is my own business," he said. "It's no concern of yours." The gang hooted and shouted at Henry's reply. A few even whistled. "Don't be fresh, kid," the big boy said. "We don't like fresh kids here." A few of the larger boys edged closer to Henry, closing the ring around him tighter. "Let me hit him, Frankie," a voice said. "Let me get him," another boy said. Henry thought quickly. "Touch me and you die," he said. "I have a rare and mysterious disease. Whoever touches me will catch it and die a horrible death." The gang stopped closing in on Henry. "Oh yeah?" said the big boy. "You expect us to believe that?" "I don't care whether you believe it or not," Henry said. "You're bluffing." "Bluffing?" Henry said. "Touch me and you'll find out if I'm bluffing. I have chocolate fever, one of the most horrible and catching diseases in the world." "Chocolate fever?" echoed the big boy. "You're making it up." Henry could see that he had the crowd on the run. "Chocolate fever is the worst disease ever discovered on Earth," he said. "You know what happens if you get chocolate fever? Your whole head swells up, your mouth gets dry, you break out in big chocolate spots like me." "Look, Ugly," and then the really bad stuff begins. The boys were listening closely now, and the circle around him was beginning to widen as the gang started to back away. "He's making it up, fellas," big boy said. "Don't listen to him." But the boys were listening all right and believing every word. Henry began to walk toward the boys. As he did, they made way for him. Slowly, a path opened, giving him room to get by. "I don't want you to die," Henry said, as he passed through the ring of boys. "So you just better let me be on my way now." None of the boys tried to stop him. Even big boy, as Henry passed close by, made no move to touch him. Just as Henry neared the outer ring of boys, he heard one of them exclaim, "Hey, I know who he is. I heard it on the radio when I came home from school. There's a kid who ran away from a hospital this morning, and the police are looking for him. His name is Henry Green." Big boy called out as Henry kept walking. "Is that you, kid? Are you Henry Green?" "Henry Green?" Henry called back over his shoulder. "Never heard of him." Just the same, as soon as he was clear of the schoolyard, Henry broke into a run and didn't stop until he had left the gang far, far behind him.
Chapter 8. Map. The truck thumped and rumbled along the superhighway, its powerful headlights cutting a yellow slice through the blackness. "Are you all right up there, kid?" the driver called from the sleeping bunk and sat up high in the cab of the big diesel. Henry answered, "Right, Mac. I'm okay." "Okay," Henry thought bitterly. "I'm sure I'm okay. I don't have a friend in the world. I look like some of the sideshow freak. The police and doctors and folks in heaven knows everyone is after me. And I don't know where I'm going. If that's being okay, then I'm okay." He had stood out on the highway for a long time and watched the day turn into dark. Hundreds of cars and trucks had swept by without stopping, but Mac had stopped and offered him a lift. That was hours ago, and they had come a long way. Henry didn't know how many miles they had traveled or where they were heading, or what's more, he didn't care. He was sure that Mac did not see his spots. It had probably been too dark to notice them. No one in his right mind would have anything to do with me, Henry thought. No, not once they got a look at these stupid big brown spots. Even Mac, nice as he seemed, wouldn't have taken a chance if he had seen me clearly. Hop in, Mac said. The weather's fine. A big grin crossing his friendly face. He was a huge black man dressed in dirty coveralls. His truck was clean and warm, and Henry didn't hesitate. After sitting alongside Mac for an hour or so in the front seat, Henry had climbed into the bunk and had fallen quickly asleep. He didn't know how long he had, but he felt rested now. Mac turned the big truck off the highway and onto a service road. Slowly he shifted it through the gears and braking gently the huge trailer to a stop. Hey kid, he called, come on down here. Henry climbed down to the seat beside Mac. Super time, Mac said, now just as soon as I get the lights on. I like the dark, Henry said. You what? I like the dark, Henry said as the lights came on. Henry blinked at the sudden brightness. He's seen me now, he thought. Mac reached down below his seat and brought up a big picnic basket. He placed it between them on the seat. Now let's just see what the woman gave us for supper, he said. It's all right, Henry said. I'll get off here. Huh? I won't make any fuss, Henry said. I'll just go quietly. You are a strange one, kid, Mac said. Now what are we talking about? Well, you must see these big brown spots all over me by now. Mac nodded. Yeah, I see them. He began looking through the picnic basket. You like ham and cheese. I'm willing to go. Henry began. Maybe chicken spread. We got chicken spread too, and I do believe, yes, by heavens, tuna first. I mean, Henry began again. If you don't want to have anything to do with me, I'll understand. I really will. What will it be, Mac said. Tuna, chicken spread, or ham and cheese? He was looking squarely into Henry's face, smiling ever so slightly. Tuna, Henry said after a moment, talking the sandwich Mac handed him. Glory, we eat at last, Mac said. Henry gobbled the tuna sandwich and nothing flat. Then went on to dispose to ham and cheese, and an apple, and a piece of raisin cake, and half a thermos bottle of milk. There was chocolate cake too, but Henry declined it. Somehow it didn't appeal to him. When they had finished eating, Mac settled back and lightened his cigar. Mac, Henry, isn't there something you want to ask me? Sure, but I figure you're about to tell me what I want to know. Well, Henry began, I have this disease called chocolate fever. That's what these big brown spots are all over me. Chocolate, and nobody, especially a doctor named Fargo, knows what to do about it. So I'll probably have these spots on me for the rest of my life. And that's why you're running away? Mac said. I have to run away, Henry said. I look so terrible and ugly. I wouldn't say ugly, Mac said. Unique, maybe. What's that? Sort of special. But how can I live this way? I'm a freak, a chocolate freak. Easy now, Mac said. Calm down. People will be looking and staring at me. How can I live with people staring at me? Mac chuckled softly. He looked away from Henry. How would you like it, Mac, if people stared at you? You know, kid, I've had some experience in that line myself. The big man said quietly, You mean people stare at you? Uh-huh, Mac said. When you're black and most of the other people are white, that's bound to happen. Gee, Mac, Henry said, I'm sorry. Oh, it's nothing personal, kid. Besides, by the time I was your age, I've gotten over it. But you know you're getting started, and some other things got me thinking. If there's so many white people and so few black people, why that kind of makes me unique. You mean special. Exactly right. So all that staring and stuff, what it did was make me proud. You know, black is beautiful. That's okay for you, Henry said. But white with big brown spots all over is ugly. Mac put his hand to his mouth and coughed for a moment. Henry thought he might be laughing. Okay, youngster, he said. Have it your own way. Just tell me where you are going. What you figure on doing. I'm just running away, Mac said, and I don't know what I'm going to do. Mac thought about that for a second and a half. Just flat out running away, huh? Things get too much for you. So you cut out? Brilliant. I won't go back, Henry said. I just won't, okay? Then you won't go back. But then let me ask you something. You got a mother? Yes. Father? Yes. They good to you? Yes. Don't beat up on it. Of course not. Don't make your life miserable. No, they're pretty good parents, right? Right. And you'll love them because they're so kind and good, right? Yes. Well, how do you think they feel right now? Wondering where you could be. Are you all right? Are you dead? Maybe? Yes, sir. You sure are treating them mean. Why, it shouldn't surprise me if your mother was crying her heart out right now. Just stick to death without worrying about you. But Mac, now you hush. I'm finished with with what I gotta say. I'm a good child respecting his parents, yes, sir. A good child don't cause his parents heartache or grief or worry. No, sir. Henry didn't try to say anything, but he was listening very carefully. Now here's my plan, kid. First thing we do, drive down this road till we get to a telephone, then we can call your folks so they can stop worrying. I'm not going back to the hospital, Henry said firmly. We'll tell that to your folks too. Maybe there's someplace else you can go, some other doctor who can take care of you. I like that idea, Henry said. Who knows, Matt continued. Maybe this chocolate fever of yours will go away. Maybe you'll just wake up tomorrow and it'll all be cured. I hope so, said Henry, but I don't think so. Anyways, first thing we do is call your folks, okay? Henry smiled. There was something about the way Max spoke that made him feel better. How about it, Max said. Should we find that telephone? What are we waiting for? Said Henry.